It's 8:47 on a Tuesday morning. Third floor of a mid-sized logistics company in Columbus, Ohio. The parking lot just filled up. Two guys walk in through the same door, badge in at the same reader, pour coffee from the same machine, and sit down at desks that are 11 feet apart. Marcus is 29. Daniel is 29. They were hired the same month, same department, same starting salary. $54,000 a year. They eat lunch together twice a week. They complain about the same manager. They both drive used Hondas. From every angle that matters on paper, these two men are identical. One of them will retire at 58 with $1.4 million in the bank. The other will still be sitting at that desk at 71, not because he wanted to, but because the math stopped working for him somewhere along the way and he never quite caught it in time. Same salary, same company, same city, same coffee, 30 years from now. One of them has options the other can only imagine. And the entire gap, every single dollar of it, traces back to one decision made in one ordinary month that neither of them thought was particularly important at the time. My name is Ellen, and I spend way too much time studying the moments that look like nothing and turn into everything. If you are somewhere between 25 and 50 and you have ever quietly wondered whether you are behind, whether you missed something, whether the people around you know something you don't, this video is going to answer that. Make sure you subscribe, because this is exactly the conversation nobody has with you until it is too late to matter. Let's get into it. Before we talk about Marcus and Daniel, let me show you the water they are swimming in, because the backdrop matters for understanding why this one decision carries so much weight. The Employee Benefit Research Institute runs a retirement confidence survey every year. Their 2024 numbers are not comfortable reading. Only 27% of American workers feel very confident they will have enough money to live comfortably throughout retirement. 27%. That means nearly 3 out of 4 people currently working in America are heading toward retirement with serious doubt about whether they are going to make it. And the doubt is justified. The Federal Reserve's survey of consumer finances found that the median retirement savings for Americans aged 55 to 64, the people closest to the finish line, is $185,000. Not $1.85 million. $185,000. For a retirement that could last 25 to 30 years, the median person a decade from retirement has saved enough to cover roughly 6 years of average expenses. The math does not work, and most people will not find out until it is too late to fix it. Fidelity recommends having 10 times your salary saved by retirement age. The median American has saved less than 3 times. There is a canyon between where people think they are and where the numbers say they actually are. And here is the part that should keep you up at night. The people in that canyon are not lazy. They are not irresponsible. Most of them worked hard for 40 years. They just never understood how the gap opened. They never saw the moment it happened. That is exactly what we are going to look at today. Specific moment. The specific decision. Let's go back to Marcus and Daniel. It is March of year 1. Both men have been at the company for 4 months. HR sends an email about the 401k plan. The company offers a 4% match, which means if you contribute 4% of your salary, the company drops in another 4% for free on a $54,000 salary. That is $2,160 in free money every single year just for participating. Daniel opens the email, reads it, closes it. He has $1,400 in checking. His rent went up $150 last month. He just put new tires on the Honda. Right now, $180 a month coming out of his paycheck feels impossible. He tells himself he will set it up next quarter. When things settle down, next quarter becomes next year. Next year becomes after the wedding. After the wedding becomes after the baby. After the baby becomes when the daycare bill drops. The email sits in his inbox, then disappears into the archive, and the decision quietly gets made by default. Marcus opens the same email. He also has about $1,400 in checking. He also feels the $180 pinch. But something makes him pause. Maybe it was something his father said once. Maybe he read something. Maybe it was just instinct. He does the math on the match. $2,160. A year for free. He thinks about what that is worth in 30 years. He cannot calculate it exactly, but he can feel that it is large. He sets it up that afternoon. 4% contribution. Automatic. Done. He adjusts his lunch budget by $40 a month and genuinely does not notice the rest of the difference after the second paycheck. That is the moment. That Tuesday afternoon in March. That is the entire gap. Not a promotion. Not an inheritance. Not a side hustle. Or a windfall or a genius stock pick. One afternoon. One form. One decision that felt small enough that Daniel did not make it. And large enough that Marcus did. Now let's talk about what that moment is actually worth. Because this is the section that changes how you see money permanently. Marcus contributes 4% of $54,000. That is $2,160 a year from his paycheck. The company matches it with another $2,160. Total going into the account in year one, $4,320. At a historical average, market return of 7% annually after inflation, here is what that single year of contributions becomes by the time Marcus is 58. $4,320 invested at 29. By 58, that is 29 years of compounding. At 7%, that $4,320 becomes approximately $28,500 from 1 year of contributions. But Marcus does not contribute for just 1 year. He contributes every year, and his salary grows. 32, he gets a modest raise to $61,000. His contribution goes up automatically, because it is percentage-based. 37, another raise. 43, a promotion. Each time the contribution scales upward without Marcus having to decide anything because the automation handles it. By 45, Marcus is contributing roughly $5,800 a year from his own paycheck. The company is still matching dollar for dollar. $11,600. A year total going into the account. And the account has been compounding since he was 29. The early money, the $4,320 from year one, has already been growing for 16 years by the time he hits 45. It does not care that Marcus got a promotion. It does not care about inflation or elections or whatever the market did last Tuesday. Just compounds, quietly, relentlessly, without asking for anything in return. By 58, Marcus has contributed approximately $178,000 of his own money over 29 years. The employer match has added another $178,000. Total contributions from both sources, $356,000. And the account balance is $1.4 million. The market contributed over $1 million to a retirement Marcus built on a $54,000 starting salary. He did not get rich. He did not beat the market. He did not do anything clever. He just did not stop the compounding. Now let's follow Daniel. Daniel eventually sets up his 401k. Not at 29. At 34. 5 years later, after the wedding settles down and the first raise comes in and his sister mentions her own account at Christmas dinner, and he realizes with a quiet jolt that he has been meaning to do this for half a decade. He sets it up in February of his 34th year. Same 4% contribution. Same company match. He feels good about it. He is only 34. He has plenty of time. Here is what 5 years costs him. Those 5 years are not just 5 years of missing contributions. They are 5 years of missing the earliest and therefore most powerful compounding period of his entire working life. The The money you invest at 29 has 29 years to grow by 58. The money you invest at 34 has only 24. That 5-year difference on the earliest contributions alone costs Daniel approximately $340,000 in final balance. Not because he saved less money, because the money he did save had less time to work. By 58, Daniel's account sits at just under $900,000. Still a significant number. Still more than 99% of Americans his age. But not enough for Daniel to retire. Not at his lifestyle. Not with his mortgage still carrying 6 years. Not with the kids still finishing school. He runs the numbers with a financial planner. At 57, and the recommendation is uncomfortable. Keep working until 65. Maybe 67. The math is close but not close enough, and close is not the same as done. Marcus retires at 58. Quietly, without announcing it dramatically. He just stops renewing his commitment to the desk on the 3rd floor and starts doing the things he always said he would do when he had time. Daniel watches him go, genuinely happy for his friend, and also carrying something heavier than he expected. Not jealousy, exactly, something closer to recognition. He knows when the gap opened. He just did not know what it cost until now. Here is the thing about this story that people always push back on. They say Marcus got lucky with the market. They say $54,000 is not a realistic starting salary anymore. They say the company match is not guaranteed. All of that is fair. Adjust the numbers however you want. Cut the return in half. Remove the match entirely. Delay the raises. The gap between starting at 29 and starting at 34 persists across every version of this math. The market return is a variable. Time is not. Time is the only input in this equation that cannot be bought back. JP Morgan's asset management division ran this exact scenario in their 2023 retirement guide. They compared 3 investors. 1. Who invested $5,000 a year from age 25 to 35 and then stopped completely. 1 who waited until 35 and invested $5,000 a year, all the way to 65. And 1 who invested from 25 all the way to 65. The early starter who stopped at 35 and invested for just 10 years ended up with more money than the person who invested consistently for 30 years starting at 35. 10 years of early contributions beat 30 years of late ones, not because of the amount, because of the timing. That is the math that rewires how you think about urgency. It is not about how much you save. It is about when the compounding starts. So why does Daniel wait? This is the section I want to spend real time on because the math is the easy part. The math is clean and logical, and it does not have a commute or a daycare bill or a landlord who raised the rent in October. The behavioral layer is where the real story lives. Daniel is not irresponsible. Daniel is not bad at math. Daniel is doing something the human brain is specifically wired to do. He is discounting the future in favor of the present. Behavioral economists call it hyperbolic discounting, the technical term for something you already know from your own life. The reward that is far away feels abstract. The cost that is right now feels concrete. $180 less in the checking account this Friday is real. $1.4 million at 58 is a number on a spreadsheet. The brain does not weight them equally, even though the math says it should. And there is another layer underneath that one. Daniel does not have a deadline. Nobody is calling him. Nobody sends a second email. The company is not going to penalize him for not participating. The consequence of inaction is invisible for decades. It shows up at 57 when the financial planner pulls up the projection and the room gets very quiet. By then, the urgency is real, but the time is gone. Richard Thaler, the Nobel Prize-winning behavioral economist we have talked about on this channel before, found that the single most effective intervention for retirement savings is not financial education. It is not better plan options. It is automatic enrollment. When companies automatically enroll employees and require them to opt out rather than opt in, participation rates jump from roughly 49% to over 86%. The decision architecture matters more than the information. People do not fail to save because they do not understand compounding. They fail because the path of least resistance runs directly away from their future self, and nobody builds a speed bump. This is why the automation is not optional. This is why Marcus, setting it up that Tuesday afternoon and never touching it again, is the entire story. He did not rely on motivation. He did not check the market every quarter. He did not need discipline every month because there was no monthly decision to make. The system ran without him, and 29 years later the system delivered. Now let's talk about what happens in the 40s, because there is an acceleration chapter in this story that most people miss. Marcus at 43 gets a promotion. His salary jumps to $91,000. This is the moment that derails most people. The lifestyle upgrade, the nicer apartment, the new car, the restaurant that stopped feeling like a splurge. For Marcus, something different happens. He has been watching his account balance compound for 14 years. By this point, he has seen the number grow. He understands in his bones now what the early version of him only understood in theory. He bumps his contribution from 4% to 9%. Not because he is disciplined, because watching $178,000 become $310,000 over 14 years without him doing anything made the math feel real in a way the original email never could. The increase from 4% to 9% on a $91,000 salary is $4,550 more per year going into the account. Over the next 15 years until retirement, that additional contribution adds approximately $190,000 to his final balance. Not from the market, from the decision to step up when the income allowed it instead of letting lifestyle absorb every dollar of the raise. This is the habit the early retirees share. Not that they are frugal their entire lives. Not that they drive terrible cars and eat sad lunches forever. But that when the income grows, they make sure the savings rate grows first before the lifestyle catches any of it. The raise hits. The contribution goes up. The checking account gets a little better too. But the investment account gets the first cut. Daniel at 43 also gets a raise. He also thinks about increasing his contribution. He increases it to 6%. A real and meaningful improvement. But the lifestyle has already built itself around the previous income. The mortgage payment is sized to what he was making at 38. The car payment is sized to what he was making. 40. The raise gets partially absorbed before he can redirect. Not because he is reckless, because the expenses arrived first and the savings rate arrived second. The order of operations is the whole game. Here is a number I want you to sit with. Every year you delay starting does not cost you 1 year of contributions. At a 7% return over a 30-year window, every year of delay at the beginning costs you approximately 7.6% of your final balance. Not 3.3%, not 1/30th, 7.6%, because the first years are the ones that compound the longest. They are the most expensive real estate in your entire financial life, and you can only buy them once. At 25, the cost of 1 year of delay is roughly $68,000 in lost final balance on a $5,000 annual contribution. 30, it is $48,000. At 35, it is $33,000. The urgency is not the same at every age. It is highest when it feels lowest. When you are 27 and broke and the retirement date is so far away it barely feels like a real destination. That is exactly when the math is most expensive and the motivation is least available. So here is the playbook. 3 moves. Specific. Actionable. Starting this month, not next quarter. Move 1. Find the match and capture all of it today. Not next month. Today. Log into your HR portal. Find your 401k enrollment. And set your contribution to at least the percentage your employer matches. If your company matches 4%, you contribute 4%. If they match 6%, you contribute 6%. Every dollar of match you are not capturing is a 100% return you are leaving on the table. There is no investment on earth that offers a guaranteed 100% return. On day 1, the match does, and 29% of eligible employees are currently not capturing it. If you are one of them, this is the only thing that matters today. Everything else in this video is secondary to this one action. Move 2. Automate an annual increase. Most 401k plans have a feature called auto-escalation. It increases your contribution by 1% every year automatically. Turn it on. If your plan does not offer it, set a calendar reminder every January to manually increase your contribution by 1%. 1% of your salary. On a $60,000 income that is $50 a month. You will not feel it after the second paycheck. Over 20 years, the escalation transforms a modest starting contribution into a serious wealth building machine without requiring a single moment of discipline. After the initial setup. Move 3. When income grows, savings rate grows first. Before the lifestyle upgrade. Before the nicer apartment or the car. Or the subscriptions. When the raise hits, direct at least half of it into increased contributions before you spend a single dollar of it. This is the habit that separates the Marcus outcome from the Daniel outcome more than anything else in the second half of a career. Not the starting point, the response to growth. None of these moves require a finance degree. None of them require a high salary or a perfect budget or willpower you have to manufacture every month. They require one afternoon of setup and one rule applied every time a raise arrives. That is the whole system. That is all Marcus did. And it produced a retirement at 58 on a salary that started at $54,000. I want to close on something that is not about the numbers, because the numbers are the easy part of this conversation and you already know the part that is hard. The hard part is sitting at your desk at 29 or 32 or 37 and making a decision whose payoff is so far in the future that it does not feel like a decision at all. It feels like paperwork. It feels like something you will get to when things settle down. And things never settle down. That is not pessimism. That is just Tuesday. The rent goes up and the car needs tires, and there is always something more immediate than a retirement that is 30 years away. The only way through that is to understand something Marcus understood and Daniel did not. The decision is not about retirement. It is not about 58 or 65 or whatever age the planner puts in the projection. The decision is about options. The $1.4 million does not just buy retirement. It buys the ability to say no to a job that is making you miserable at 52. It buys the ability to take a lower salary doing work that actually matters. It buys 3 months between jobs without spiraling. It buys the version of your life where money is not the deciding factor in every single room you walk into. Daniel is not going to retire at 58, but he is going to be fine. He is going to work until 67 and retire with dignity and look back on a career he is proud of. The gap between him and Marcus is not the difference between a good life and a bad one. It is the difference between a life with options and a life without them. And options are not purchased with a bigger salary. They are purchased with a decision made on a Tuesday afternoon in March. When you are 29 years old and the $180 feels like a lot and the future feels very far away. If this one landed, drop a like. It helps this channel reach more people who need to run these numbers before the Tuesday afternoon has already passed. Subscribe if you have not, because this is what we do here. The decisions that look ordinary in the moment and look enormous 20 years later. Not a financial advisor. Nothing here is financial advice. Just the math that keeps showing up in the gap between people who end up with options and people who end up without them.